Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode in our Save a Seat series here on Patreon. As always, I'm your podcast host, Chloe. You may notice that my background has changed a little bit, though. I recently moved, so I am recording from a new location for fans that may be watching our videos. Thank you so much. And if you are joining us on Patreon, that means that you are helping support us to make opportunities reachable for everyone and helping us continue with our internship program, which last week we talked to our more summer interns. You guys got to hear, what they work on, why internships are so important to them, and why More has continued to do an internship series because it's so important to us to uplift young professionals and help them understand how to, save a seat at the table for others. So make sure to go listen to that. But we are joined once again by Leila Spann to talk a little bit about storytelling in marketing and how good marketing can make people connect with a business. So thank you so much for joining us again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Chloe.
So glad to have you. So for those of our listeners that did not listen to the Spotify episode, will you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Totally. My name is Leila Spann. I am the founder of a company called enbloom Marketing, which I always say is a brand strategy and storytelling agency. I'm originally from New York, but I've landed in Indy, Indiana, and have stayed here for about 10 years, where I've built a life and kind of surprised myself along the way. So I always say my personal story is one of like reinvention and surprises. And building this brand and being able to speak to you today about marketing is something that I'm very excited about.
Awesome. Well, gosh, right off the bat, I gotta ask. You moved from New York to Indiana. What kind of spurred that change?
Yeah, so I moved here for grad school. I always say I kind of came like kicking and screaming because I wanted to go to Philadelphia. For whatever reason, I was really pulled to the Philadelphia area. I grew up in upstate New York, and then at the time was living in Brooklyn. So ultimately, the package at grad school at IU was stronger, and I moved from Brooklyn to Bloomington, which I could likely write a book about because it was a huge culture shift, and it just taught me so much being away from my family and my friends, and being able to reconnect with people and meet new people. I just was so nervous about all of that, and lo and behold, here I am, 10 years later with a network and a community that has really held true and held strong. So it's been a fun journey.
Yeah, amazing. Well, we're certainly glad to have you.
Thank you.
So let's get into some questions to dig deeper into marketing. In the first episode, we talked about, what does marketing really mean? How can a story be told through good marketing, and why it's important for businesses to really market themselves well, to connect with people, to tell their story. So what are some of the things that you see as you work with businesses, as you observe the way that they market themselves? What are some of the pitfalls that you're seeing that businesses engage in that probably aren't best for them?
Oh, Chloe, how much time do we got? Because I feel like I can I can eat up the rest of the time with just answers. So
Let me tell
kind
you.
of cut me off at some point. Um, Wow. So this is a great question because so much of what people think marketing is not actually what it is in reality. So if you go to our website, you'll see in massive letters, our mission is to abolish reactive marketing. Now, what does that mean? A lot of marketing is reactive, meaning people come and say, hey, like we didn't get a lot of sales from that last email. Or, hey, can you make this look pretty? Can you make this a flyer? Can you make this can you add zhuzh to this? And marketing is so much more than that. And our mission is to make marketing intentional, to stop posting content without a strategy. That's a huge pitfall.
Mhm.
To chase vanity metrics or trends or try to go viral. I always say I don't want my clients to go viral. And people think that that's such a hot take. But virality opens you up to audiences that aren't yours. And chasing viral trends instead of building something with structure and knowing who you're talking to is a really, really big red flag.
Yeah.
So I always say it's cool to go viral, but it's really hard to go viral multiple times. And once you do that, you're opening yourself up to more and more audiences to just be confused about what you offer because ultimately you're not talking to them specifically.
Right.
Let's see, ignoring data is another big one. So a lot of brands will say, hey, we don't have capacity to do marketing. Let's just promote this event. and they don't look at the data of the last event. What went well? What got clicks? What didn't get clicks? How many emails did we include in the email nurture journey? Did we do LinkedIn campaign with ads? Did we post on Facebook? All of the channels, to me, connect in. I'm also a theater background. I know you mentioned that earlier, Chloe.
Yeah.
I grew up in theater, dance, and for me, a lot of marketing is like this symphony where we get to choose what channels we're turning on when and how they all are connected to ultimately sing the same song. So that's another red flag. If all of your channels are not consistently sharing the same message, if ultimately I come to Instagram and see one message, and then I come to your website and see a completely conflicting message, and then go to, let's say, Facebook or X, and there's a third and fourth and fifth message, I'm going to be so confused about what you do, what you offer. And
Yeah.
ultimately, that's confusing your prospects, your buyers, your internal team. And every time you replay that story in a different way, you're changing your brand. So as soon I get really passionate about this because I'm like, buyers are confused. Buyers are really confused. And a lot of brands have internal teams that are confused and reinventing what their brand says and what their brand values are. So I always say, like, abolishing reactive marketing and having intentional marketing foundation, marketing strategy, knowing who your brand archetype is. If your brand was a person, who would they be? Would they shop at Goodwill? Do they care about brand names? Are they materialistic, or would they want to go for a walk in the park or take a bike ride? Like, what's their ideal form of transportation? And it sounds really silly to like get that nitty gritty about this brand, right? But ultimately, knowing as much granular detail as you can about your brand and how they would move through the world if they were actually a person is something that holds a ton of value. So the biggest red flag I see is like, without using data, you have this lack of direction, and then you don't necessarily have a story, which then leads to no impact and no real connection with your customer, prospects, audiences.
That is so fascinating to me because I think that a lot of why we connect with things is because they feel personified. And, if you actually personify your brand and you ask those questions, like you said, what kind of transportation are they taking? How do they move through the world? What choices are they making? Like, people are going to inevitably connect with it more because it feels like somebody that they know that they can connect with.
Absolutely.
That's so interesting.